It was a bit of a busy week with several trials going on, a Supreme Court case, a verdict overruled, and some more pre trial work in the other Idaho case. This is a weekly recap on just legal history, and I'm your host, Mike. This is for week ending April 26th. Let's start first with the person who had both a trial and a Supreme Court argument heard this week. That doesn't happen very often, and that is for Donald Trump. Trump is on trial for potential fraud charges in regard to money spent on various items, including hush money paid to Stormy Daniels. This week started with us hearing from the head of the National Enquirer and whether or not he received payments to either run stories against other people that Trump was running against or to kill stories that might hurt Trump. Today we heard from Gary Farrow, who was Michael Cohen's banker. This testimony was discussing the payments to Stormy Daniels and the entities that were used to pay her. The trial is off on Monday and will resume Tuesday. In addition to his trial, Trump also had a case heard before the Supreme Court this week regarding presidential immunity. The question is what crimes can the president do, or if all of them that the president has done while he is in office. And this would go toward anything that happened on January 6th or other crimes. The question is the boundary of what the president can do and if he can be charged. Normally, Supreme Court decisions take months, but because of the election coming up, this case might be decided much quicker than normal. Next up is the Chad Daybell trial. As I understand, a lot of this was covered in the Lori Vallow case, but there are some new things. We heard from several friends of the couple with how they met and what their beliefs are. Chad's defense team is trying to argue that it was all of Lori's doing and he had nothing to do with it. I don't think it looks too good when the testimony this week was talking about how Chad and Lori gave light and dark ratings to their own children. The trial continues next week. In the Massachusetts, the jury selection finished up for the Karen Reed trial. Opening statements start Monday. The judge did decide to move the courtrooms to a smaller one because of the issue with jurors not being able to see the witnesses. On Thursday, several motions were heard and decided on. The prosecution will be allowed to bring in that Karen was planning on leaving John. Also, there was talk about what would be revealed with regard to the death certificate. The means of death will be blocked out and can only come in to testimony on cross. The trial starts on Monday, and we will see how things go, both inside and outside of the courtroom, because it has generated a lot of traffic outside the courtroom with all the people that are covering it. In news of the trial's verdict that was overturned, that happened in the regard to Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein was convicted of sexual assault in New York, but an appeals court overturned his verdict and ordered a new trial. The verdict was overturned because of bad 404 evidence in regard to prior bad acts. There is a fine line what the prosecution can bring in regard to prior bad acts. The prosecution wants to show that a person has a history of the same behavior, but with the courts not wanting the jury to be prejudiced by the acts and focus on what is being presented at that time. So in this case, there was testimony from previous women who said they had been sexually assaulted by Weinstein. But the appeals court ruled in this case that this was actually tantamount to Weinstein actually being tried for all these other cases and that it was too prejudicial. They remanded for a new trial. Of course, this could be appealed to a higher court, or prosecution could retry Weinstein or drop the charges. This does not mean that Weinstein is out of prison. He is still serving time in California prison for sexual assault that took place there. This was definitely a big case in the Me Too movement, and we will see if it affects that at all. So we will wait to see if they will appeal or retry him. In Delphi, we continue with the back and forth in pre-trial motions. One of the items that came out this week is the motion to get the records of one of the lead detectives who at the time investigated a potential Odinism lead. The defense is planning on calling him while the prosecution is trying not to say he has a bad record. Definitely some irony in this witness. We haven't heard about the decision on the contempt hearing, nor on the Franks hearing motion. The trial is scheduled to begin in about 3 weeks, but most people don't think it will start that early. Back to Idaho for Kohberger pre-trial paperwork. The defense has been polling potential jurors about what they know about the case and whether or not they have made up their mind already. The concern was that the defense is poisoning the jury pool, so the trial would need to be moved. But the judge ruled that the gag order was in place so the defense could get a fair trial, and if the defense wants to talk and hurt his chances for a fair trial, then he and his team can. But to me, this sounds like a waiver for change in venue. On a different note I didn't bring up last week, Kohberger presented his alibi. He said that he was just driving around stargazing and that he didn't do it. We'll see how well the jury buys that one. Thanks for listening to a weekly recap of Just Legal History. If you like these quick summaries, please like and comment below. Enjoy the last week in April as we start to get close to summer and close to CrimeCon at the end of next month.